Welcome everybody to the Triple Commit podcast, the weekly Rocket League podcast. This is our first ever one, and so to start out, we have to bring out the big guns. We have to bring out Stumpy and BassFromThePast. Stumpy, of course, one half of Subbarbutin, and of course, an RLCS analyst slash commentator. And then, of course, Past also an RLCS analyst slash commentator. So two absolute big names here. How are you doing today, lads?
Not bad. I'm feeling good. We were just discussing about having to wake up extremely early, and I feel slovenly in a way because I wake up at like 9 a.m. every morning, and it's just so I then leave the room and then go and lay on a sofa under a blanket and just continue doing nothing until the evening. So I feel slovenly, but it's nice to be here. Thank you, Morky, for inviting me on.
I'm also loving that, but I'm just gonna get this out of the way. Stumpy, I'm jealous. The fact that you can wake up at 9 a.m. is already making it so that you've got height on me, you've got the fact that you're better looking than me, and also you wake up at 9 a.m. This is, I don't like to start, man.
But you've got the better name, so we'll call it even.
Yeah, BassFromThePast, or BassFromThePast, as you've said before on the RLCS Overtime.
Because I would say, is it right? Firstly, is it the fish or the music?
Okay, so
Which one?
The fish. It is the fish.
Okay, so it's a bass. But then I say past, so it's Bass from the Past, which sounds awful. So it has to be Bass from the Paste or something.
If this makes you feel any better, you and Yummy introduced me the exact same way. That is what Yummy did on my first ever OCE broadcast, is he literally immediately went Bass from the Past, or as I like to call it, Bass from the Paste, and immediately said that as soon as I got on. So great minds think alike, I guess.
Well, it's a very, very nice start here, but do you want to just give a little bit of background about yourselves so we can get on? So Stumpy, we'll start with you. Do you want to talk about how you got into casting and how's it going for you so far? Anyway, obviously going very well because you're on the main broadcast.
Somehow doing very well, yeah. Everything in my casting career makes zero sense whatsoever. The first time I ever casted Rocket League, I was drunk with Shogun in my bedroom, right? It was at university where he came over to do a 24-hour stream with me and Cole. Cole had also never casted. We were drinking. It was brilliant. I had a great time. The second time I ever casted was on the set of the Gfinity Elite series. Like, over in London. That was the second time I'd ever done it. And apparently, talent in the EU at that point was so thin on the ground that I was a good choice. And Gregan just kept putting us forward for things. And eventually, you know, myself and Cole, part of Subpar NHD, we ended up streaming like every single day as much as we could for the longest time. At this point, we've not streamed since September. Whoops. Because we've been doing a lot more things. But since COVID basically happened, RLCS X, we were brought onto the B stream thanks to the just beautiful team over at Rocket League Esports. They are some of the nicest people I've ever spoken to in my life. I've known them for 5 years. Even when I couldn't work with them, I still chatted to them frequently. And then they gave myself and Cole the chance to come on the B stream, promoted us to the A stream at the start of this year, or at the end of RLCS X, something like that. And then we incredibly got to go to Stockholm for the first major in 2 years and just blew our minds. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later.
We are very, very quickly, but we'll get on to Bass. How did you get into casting, and how exactly is it going for you? Obviously, as well, going very, very well.
Yeah, it's been a good 2021 for me. I know not everybody has had the greatest 21, but for me, it was definitely a year full of monumental occasions and different events that I was able to partake in. I got into casting in a very, really weird light. A lot of people talk about, how it was like just circumstantial. For me, it was COVID forced it. I literally got shut indoors because of the lockdown. Literally immediately went to casting, and what was my first cast? I'm trying to think. I want to say it was for either IGL Indie Gaming League, or it was like on my own Twitch channel. One of the two of those was where I started off, and then after about 6 or 7 months of just doing all free broadcasts, kind of grinding as much as I could, eventually I found paid broadcasts at the very tail end of 2020 and 2021. I was all right, just throw myself as much at it as I can. And so 2021's kind of cool for me. The main big things, like, somebody was talking about how much RLCX was a really big opportunity for him. Very similarly for me, I got my first chances at grid broadcast. I got my first chances at working at day ones before day ones were really a big thing. And then so coming into the 21-22 season, Psyonix was gracious enough to let me be on the OCE and APAC teams, and it's really changed my life, and I love what I do. That's there's not really much else to say besides that. The fact that I'm able to do what I do nowadays is just kind of a blessing, and to every person that's put me in that position, I really do want to know why. I appreciate your faith in me, but like, what on earth?
I mean, the grid, right, was literally one of the best things forecasting for anybody. We were on with Endpoint originally for that, a team that I'm still utterly in love with. I adore Endpoint. So many other, I said like at the start of Rocket League, there was not that much European talent, and realistically, there weren't many chances for European talent. Myself and Cole, even now we're on the RLCS team, there were no opportunities to work our way in. COVID let that happen, which again, like obviously, wish it never happened, but it has done well for people working online ultimately. I also felt bad at like in Zoom calls with family. Everyone's like, oh yeah, like my work's going really bad, whatever. I'm like, honestly, mum, I'm killing it. Like I don't want to show off or anything, but it's going real well. But yeah, the fact that like the grid and everything has got people into the position where now they can make a living from it, and also the talent is so good across the world. It's so good to see everyone getting involved.
Yeah, that's how I started as well. Actually, the grid wild came onto me. So I started out casting on my own channel, just doing like €30 or €50 weekend events, so ladders, and then went to IGL, and then went to RL Ireland, which of course is the Irish branch of Rocket League. So of course, you can't say Rocket League Ireland; it's RL Ireland, because Rocket League is a trademark term. So.
The RL could stand for anything. We don't know what it means. It's just
real life Ireland.
Yeah, it's real life Ireland, guys.
And yeah, so I got cast in there in the Wild Rocket series, and then Wild were like, "Hey, do you want to come on? Because this person's not very good that's casting right now." That's actually literally what happened. So that's how I got my first shot. So like a very last minute thing, and yeah, from there it's gone from strength to strength. Now, of course, following on from the amazing Stumpy, I'm now casting for Endpoint, which is pretty great, and watching Seiko
Following
pop
in
off.
The shoes, I love that. I love seeing you on that stream as well. It's so good. Also, how painful is it to watch Endpoint on a week-by-week basis? You've got the good side of them. Let me tell you that. You've got the good side of Endpoint. You don't have suffering through Season X with them. You've got Seiko to give you joy.
Yeah. Well, I still have to suffer, obviously, Regional 2 in the BMW Open, when they crashed out Ignomag. Yeah, so they crashed out pretty bad. But of course, they came back in Regional 3, and that secured their place at the RLCS Fall Major. And we're going to go into that right now. Stumpy, firstly, how was it casting at LAN and at a major?
Mind-blowing. Like, as good as you think it would be to cast in person with a human being to your side, because I mean we've been doing it from our rooms, right? Like I've got my office that I'm casting from, people are doing it from bedrooms, from living rooms, kitchens, wherever they can put their setup, to then go to an event and be in what was a beautiful studio as well. Literally just a huge room. The set was awesome. Obviously like cables and wires everywhere and amazing cameras and like jibs and whatever. You'd then find your spot, had the video wall behind you, put your headset on, and you can walk around, you can move, you can point at your co-casters. People don't realize how much like physical action there is. We are like putting in steps every day, like pointing at each other. Like if we want more play-by-play, I'll point at Cole and literally point at him angrily and be like, this is your chance, go play-by-play mode. And he'll then step it up. Or like if he wants to throw it over to me to say something, just looking people in the eye in person, on the desk as well. It's something that was very surreal to me because I haven't done that for years. And for it to be the RLCS, the first one in 2 years, very prestigious, incredibly honored to be there amongst people who I've adored as a fan. Like, I casted alongside Jorby, which for me is one of my favorite things I've ever done, I think, because I think he is one of the best play-by-play casters in the world in any esport. And the fact that there were some hype memes that came out of it was brilliant. I like that could be immortalized on the subreddit on Meme Mondays.
Yeah, so I've got a question. Why did they give Cole a box? Because I've heard rumors before that they've given Yummy Cheeseman a box to stand on. Why didn't they give Cole a box that he's cast beside you?
So you might notice on the last I think it was 3 casts that I did. I was not on camera once. The casters weren't on camera at all in my last 3 series because they determined it looked too ridiculous and there wasn't a box to give anyone. They literally said to me afterwards, like, "Hey, Stumpy, just a heads up, you're not going to be on camera. We've not got a box. Like, we can't have a box for people, so sorry." And I was like, "Oh, okay, fine then." So, yeah, no boxes were allowed. I just need, to cast alongside Wavepunk or Subi or another tall human being, and then it'll be fine.
That is amazing.
Wait, how tall are you? Just for record, can we establish this?
I am around 6'6", or
Oh my
just
God.
I'm 199 centimeters, which is the worst height in existence because it's not quite 2 meters, and that makes me upset. But yeah, very tall.
I think
I'm a
you can
tall
say-
human man.
You can say 200. I think we can allow you to say 200.
200 centimeters, baby!
I'm-
I just grew a centimeter.
I'm the same. I'm 5'11 3/4, so I just say 6
Oh
foot.
God.
So I just say 6 foot.
You're a Tinder 6 foot. That's all it is.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah. So I suppose we should go into a little bit about the major. It was absolutely fantastic. Some of the best Rocket League I've seen all year. Absolutely incredible. So many shocks. So many shock results. In my opinion, what was the big standout moment for you, Bass?
OCE taking wins. OCE on top till the day I die. I will represent my boys until I am gone, because realistically, OCE is finally getting their stage. They're finally able to show that. I love the fact that we do have, quote unquote, the minor regions, because it does kind of get that underdog story. But in my opinion, the minor regions are starting to fade out. It's not really minor regions anymore. It's kind of just the alternate ones, the non-main 2 streams. And that's kind of what we're starting to see. Sam and OCE are really starting to become threatening teams. And we all know how Mina's doing. The only one that really needs to catch up at this point is going to be APAC. And it's their first season. Give them some time. Eventually they will. But that was the big thing for me. Seeing OCE take some wins, seeing Sam take some wins, seeing the, quote, minor regions no longer become minor. It was just awesome to witness.
I love the term for the newer regions, either newer regions or emerging regions, because minor is a good way to describe them as, major regions and minor regions in a very, legal kind of sense, where it's like, okay, fair enough, that's a good distinction. But like you said, Bass, like, they've proven that they can stand at the top. The fact that we had both G2 and Envy not make the top 8, but Sandrock Gaming did as the 3rd seed, it proves that it's not just coming down to them getting lucky wins here and there. Both Ground Zero and Renegades both went to the 5th round. They were so close to making it. And yeah, it's such a cool thing to be able to see those players go. And also APAC, Bass, I know that you're obviously a big APAC man as well. Seeing Tokyo Verde there competing and going hard against G2 was so much fun.
They were just fun to watch. They're a good team. That's the other thing is I think that people are starting to recognize is that these guys might not be as polished as some of the guys in NA or EU, but give them some time and eventually they will get there. The skill that is necessary to compete at that high level, it's very clear that they've got that, and that as soon as they get some time to train with that, they really will be competitively viable. So I'm interested. The next LAN I think is going to be a really spicy shakeup here, and the LANs in about a year from now are going to be almost unrecognizable considering how close the competition is going to be.
Yeah, I'm very excited for the Winter Split, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, because that format, I think, lends itself to a lot more shocks in terms of, because it's double elimination after getting out of the groups. Three teams from each group will make it out, and then it's double elimination after that. Obviously, single elimination if you don't finish first, but you've still got a hell of a chance to provide some shocks. But we'll talk about that a bit later on. But BDS just, finally proving they're no longer an online team by winning LAN and looking so good doing it as well. They'd struggled in best 7 sets before, but then they come out and, beat a very, very good looking NRG team on the day.
Yeah, if you also just listen, just be real quiet. In the background, you can hear First Touch molding, because they were so annoyed that BDS were good. And they weren't just good. They beat the current world champions NRG, who just destroyed FaZe as far as I was concerned. The amount of comments I saw people making saying, oh, FaZe should have been in that grand finals. NRG, they threw their chance. No, not at all. Any team that came up against BDS in that grand finals, it was not going to be it wasn't going to be close. The fact that NRG got it back to the 7th game in that second series was incredible. I adore everyone on NRG. They're probably my favorite team. Garrett G is my favorite player. But the fact that BDS won made me so incredibly happy and proud, because that team, people were seeing in interviews, right, how nice and humble Extra is. I've spoken to him a little bit at that LAN, literally in passing. We couldn't like mix with anybody. That's why we had no COVID throughout the entire event, which again was amazing. But the bubbles, we couldn't interact too much. Whenever I saw him, he'd always go, "Hey, Stumpy." I was like, "It's Extra. You're literally so good at Rocket League, and you're just like taking your time to say hi to people." They're just so nice, and they deserved it. They looked formidable, and it was, for me, just being in that studio, I was jumping and cheering around, and it was a lot of fun.
I mean,
Bass, I suppose for you, is that a big motivator, seeing all the talent at LAN? Because I know it is for me. I know I want to be casting the LAN one day. I don't know about you, but I'm more motivated than ever after seeing how amazing it was, and the studio looked so good, and hearing all the talent on stream was just incredible, and it made it so much better. The Rocket League was amazing, but so was the talent. The talent was just as good as well.
Yeah, the talent was great. I think that honestly, all of you guys killed it the entire time through. I hope I did a watch party, Stumpy, and the main 3 people that if they got on screen, we were pretty much screaming that it was finally time. It was you, Yummy, and then probably I would say Jorby occasionally, like depending on who Jorby, like, because Jorby has that energy, like you said. So when you get it with a good duo, all of a sudden it's just both people are just excelling to the to the nth degree. So we were literally watching the talent, and when the lineups got announced, it was just basically myself and Vitaly, one of the CCA guys, just screaming at our screen, "Yeah, finally!" Just kind of excited that we're getting to see the casters that we've been waiting for all day. But yeah, it is a huge motivator for me. Interesting thing, because I came up during the time of COVID, I've never done a LAN. Everything I've worked my entire career has been online. So being able to go to an in-person event and being able to cast an in-person event would be absolutely incredible. If it ends up being RLCS, which I don't think it's going to. I appreciate your motivation there, Morky, and your faith that you have in me. But, if it does happen, it'd be incredible. If not, I'm just excited to be able to watch. It really is cool that I get to say I'm kind of a part of that sort of stuff. I was the part of the build-up that came to that LAN. Even if I don't get to be directly a part of it, I'm happy with the contributions I've got now, man. I'm grateful that I'm even allowed to be a part of it.
I suppose that's the RLCS Fall Major right there for you, but what has happened since then has been just as exciting in so many ways. Rostermania, all the roster changes, confirmed and not confirmed. We're going to stick mostly to the confirmed ones because, we're not going to do rumors here. We're not that kind of podcast yet. Maybe in the future, who knows?
Not yet. Yeah, I'm excited for you to just be reading shift tweets. That's all we need.
They're never wrong, though. They're never wrong.
Never, yeah, no. Or they're very reputable. Never wrong.
Never.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been absolutely crazy. NA and EU both have really come out swinging but NA especially come out swinging, making these new super teams. And we'll start off, of course, the big one, which is G2 and Envy and Atomic and Drees both switching over in a trade. And I think it's a very, very interesting one. What do you think, Bass?
I think this is strategic. I think what they did here is that both teams have kind of different visions for where they want to be at this moment, and I think that they're kind of adjusting towards that. G2 right now are basically going, all right, this is not the end of Chicago and JNAPS, but they're like, these guys are at their peak. They're playing at like the best that they've been able to play. They've been doing really well. They've had finally broken that curse of not being able to win any events outright. And now that they've gotten to that place, I think G2 are going, all right, it's throwing all the cards on the table. Let's see what we can do. Can we get them a third that we think is going to be able to perform at this peak level that they're at right now, and can they keep that up? I don't know if it's the best strategy, though. In my opinion, I'm a big Drees fan. I didn't really see the necessity in them doing that, but I kind of see the mentality behind G2 doing that. But I think Envy's got the better idea here. They've got a young talent in Drees. They've got someone they can hold on to for a couple of years. I think what Envy is doing right now is, hey, our current roster is kind of going through a shaky phase. Let's build a roster that's going to be here in a year and still be able to compete at the top. And again, 2 different strategies. Which one's going to be more viable? Only time will tell, but it does kind of feel a little bit odd on G2's move to, hey, we finally won a championship. We finally won something. Get rid of the team.
Imagine, just for a second, you finally win an event. You've got a new young gun kid. He's doing so well. He is beloved by so many people. You're finally in North America fostering young talent, which is something they have not done for a couple of years now. And then you have one bad result at his first LAN and you go, Nah, we're good. Nah, let's get another one. Let's just get someone else then, lol. It is a baffling choice to me. And again, we're all talking about, like, you know, anything that goes on behind the scenes, sure, that's happening. We're not really focusing on that because it's all conjecture, whatever. I'm just looking at the results, looking at how I think it should have been done. G2 losing Drees is one of the most confusing changes for me because, sure, they've gone to Atomic. Atomic is bloody good, right? Atomic is really good at Rocket League. Everybody is at this level. But Drees, I want him now to go to Envy, to fly the Envy colors, and to show G2 why they made a massive mistake. Because I don't like that in North America, we're seeing young talent being snubbed for more established talent. And bear in mind, I'm talking about Atomic, who is like 18 or something, which I was talking to some of the other guys. They were saying, Atomic's not like an old guy here. Like, don't get me wrong. I was like, that's a very good point. You know, maybe I went a bit too strong on that. He's still only 18. But Drees is brand new to this. He had one event and they got to the top 9 in the world and then they lost at Endpoint. Like, you can't be mad at that. It really does piss me off because I think Envy now have had the best decision that they're going to be making for a long time. Mist is an outstanding player. Holding on to him, brilliant. Turbo, fair play. Apparently he's... Yeah, if he can work on his mechanics, I'm sure we're all thinking, like, he can get back up there. He's going to do, hopefully, the NRG thing. Gets kicked from NRG, and then all of a sudden, he looks sick just randomly at a DreamHack with Classics and Gabe, and it's like, oh, okay, fair enough. They're going to be a good team now. I want Turbo to, you know, focus on his mechanics, whatever. And I want Drees to, whenever they play G2, make it personal, make them hurt, because that is a massive move for Envy. And Atomic, I don't want to talk him down whatsoever. He's still brilliant. I just think that G2 have let go of one of the best new players in North America.
Yeah, I suppose that is one thing that I do see difference between EU and NA is that EU is really good at fostering these young players, bringing them up, bringing them strong talents. And even you see older players now during this Rostermania going creating teams of bubble players who are like 15, 16, you know, making these teams that are going to do really well in regional, like regional event qualifiers. NA just seems to try and make stack teams at the top, and then that kind of forgets kind of the middle of the pack and the bottom of the pack. And it leads to problems because the bubble scene is really important. We'll talk about that later on. But, you know, when you're not developing that talent, fostering that talent, it can lead to issues. So seeing players like Daniel and Naku getting their shots is great, but where exactly are the rest of the players coming through?
I mean, there's two. Like, that's two players that we've mentioned. And then you look back a year ago, you look at Seiko. Who would have said that he's going to be on the top seed going through to the Fall Major? Nobody would have said it. And you'd be right to say at that point, but he has been fostered. He has been put on a team that needed a shake-up, and he has done so incredibly well with Endpoint. I mean, I could talk about this whole Drees move for like hours because I've got so many probably incorrect opinions about it that I'll be shouted at by cleverer people than I. But I just think, to me, at least, Past, I don't know if you agree, but having such an impressive character on your team and then letting them go because of what we can see, one bad LAN result after winning a regional, it's just short-sighted.
This feels weird to me. This entire scenario of what's going on right now in North America just kind of feels like a bunch of teams that were like, we didn't get first place, therefore it's not good enough. And it's really weird because it's like, guys, there's only one team that can be number one. And I'm going to wholeheartedly admit that it's basically NRG at the top of NA and BDS at the top of the world. They are by far the best team on the planet right now. You go look at the comments that Sizz had about it. It was very clear that they were like, no, we understand why they're the best in the world. They communicate better, they use each other in the field better, and they are able to operate as a trio better than anyone else on this planet right now. And it's to their advantage. They're doing a great job. And that trio mentality is what we're not seeing in NA right now. It's a lot of teams that are just kind of like, can this individual talent do good enough on this roster that he's going to be able to elevate us versus can the roster as a whole actually work together and work that out? I don't understand this. I really don't get why, despite every team that's doing well right now being the teams that have had veteran time with each other, BDS working together for over a year now, NRG working together for over a year now, and then all the other teams that are trying to get up to that number one spot go, all right, cool. switch everything up all the time. Like, I don't, how does that correlate? Where that line kind of gets, connected? I don't really get it. And again, if you're going to make the switch ups, why not make it be a risk? Why not have it be these young kids? Why would it not be, why is it not Aqua? Why is it not Daniel? Why is it not Poyo? How is Poyo not on a team? He's rank A and he's 15. No team wants to take a chance on him? I don't get it. North America, what you're doing right now is basically going, the veterans have proven themselves on repeat, so let's just keep giving chances to them. Guys, in 2 years when the veterans are no longer able to play because they've started to fade out, you're going to get overtaken by these young kids. So it's either hop on the train or get run over by it. Make your choice, North America, because right now you're not really doing either. It's this really weird middle ground that I don't get.
Yeah, it is quite bizarre. But actually, while we were on air recording, we've just had confirmation that Virtuoso has signed with Navi. That has just been announced. So while we've been on air, so he's replacing, I believe it's Dead Monster. It is Dead Monster. Yeah. Yes, indeed, Dead Monster has joined his own team, which I think is interesting as well. That's an interesting team in and of itself. Dead Monster's new team. I think they're going to do some damage. Honestly, what do you guys feel about some of the roster moves in EU?
I'm sure. What are the big ones that have happened then in EU that are confirmed?
Well, obviously SK splitting up, Dead Monster leaving, Ocelon being kicked as well, Tho being kicked from Heroic.
Ocelon, I like that one. I like that. I think that's a good choice from Heroic.
Yukio going back to team with Turbo Pulsa.
Yeah. Panda,
Final Panda, sorry. Whoa.
Yukio's got his visa. He's off. He's going to America. No,
he's got America as well.
I think it's such a good choice. I really do. I think that having Heroic now be near enough Dignitas again, whereas Panda, it's Yukio and it's Verge, I think that's brilliant. It also shows, saying that I've always known, but now now that it's pretty much public, is that there was not and is not bad blood between them. Like, it was purely that move of, look, this roster isn't working, Yukio, we're going to be trying out different things. That is completely okay to me, and I think that's a great idea to go for. If you need to change it up, you change it up, whatever. I love seeing Yukio back on that team. I love knowing that Verge knows how he works, Verge knows how Panda works, and all three of them are going to be able to lead another player, whoever it does end being kind of eventually, if like anybody does end up getting changed out, into a new world of Rocket League. I think that's brilliant. I think Heroic have had a great idea there. I think Tho, he'll find somewhere, he'll land on his feet, he'll do pretty well, make a couple of regionals. But Heroic, that's a really, really strong move.
I would agree. I think the reality here at this point is that we're kind of seeing two different sort of movements in terms of the regions right now. NA is a scramble to try and find power teams. EU is trying to develop themselves right now. They're looking for squads that are going to be good fits, things that are going to be viable for a whole season over. And I think moves like that, like Vert, is going to be sort of those types of moves of just make sure that they're comfortable, make sure that the roster is happy where they're at, and give them the chance to find success later on throughout this season. Because in my opinion, as a whole, EU is a lot more volatile in a good way. It basically means whoever is on the day is able to perform at their best level is most likely going to have a really good shot at making at least the top 8. NA isn't really built like that right now. Again, I think a lot of that is because of the moves that we're seeing at the top of the veterans kind of staying with those quote veteran teams. So it's kind of hard for that, I'd say, 8 to 16 teams to break into that top 8. But that's kind of why I enjoy watching EU more right now. It does kind of feel like a lot of these guys are not just looking for the immediate success. They're looking towards the future. What's going to happen during the spring major? Are they going to be able to compete there and really show themselves off? And I think that difference is honestly making it a lot more entertaining to just watch EU overall right now. And again, NA fanboy, I'm from NA, but I can really, confirm a lot of the bias towards EU right now because you guys are on top. You're doing a lot better as a whole, as a region right now. And it's kind of hard to say as an NA fan, but it's the truth. I'm not going to fight against it.
I mean, I want NA to just develop more. Like, I want the Rocket League that we see at every single major and Worlds to be literally the best Rocket League we can have. If, EU stomped, fall, winter, spring, and Worlds, I'd be like, cool, but I'd rather see it trade, and then when we then get to Worlds, it's then even more amped up. Who is going to be the one on top? I think that with North America, there's a lot to do. I think there's a lot of incredible minds over in North America to let that happen. You mentioned Sizz a little bit earlier on, and I want to praise his incredible mind. The fact that he managed to bring Justin back from the place where he was through the Swiss stage, where they went into round 5, and they ended up playing, who was it in the final round? Ground Zero, was it? Yeah, Ground Zero. And they were in there. That was life or death. They were going to go out or they were going through. Justin was not in a good place in the Swiss stage. He was not doing well. Sizz and that team transformed him to look unbelievable when it came to the final 2 days. And I want to just praise his coaching for that. The way that they turned him round and got him to be confident again. And you can see it when they were laughing and smiling at each other for errors or mistakes or anything that was happening. It was so good to see. And yeah, I just want to make sure that Sizz gets so much recognition for that.
Yeah, most definitely. What I'm really loving though about the heroic move is Ole, who's really come out during the COVID period. You know, RLCS X, of course, playing for Wolves, and now of course playing for heroic. I think having Yukio and Violent Panda there is going to make him the best player he can possibly be. He's such a talent, and I feel this roster move is good for him as well. Because you got two very experienced players there who have been there, done most of all, if not done it all, in Final Panda's case. And you're just so talented. But I do want to kind of touch on the Stormtroopers lineup, which is Tho, Ocelot, and Dead Monster. I think that could be a team that really shocks us in the next few regionals.
Oh yeah, I listen. I could go on all day praising Dead Monster. I love that man. He is just absolutely good at what he does. He's a really, really dedicated person, and I just want to see him find success. The reality is that the rest of the roster from the original Stormtroopers have gone on to find themselves a lot of success, and I've always felt like Dead Monster could be the next one in line. That original lineup, you could see it with each player individually, how skilled they were, and it just kind of feels like, again, I'm not angry at who Dead Monster is being replaced by. It doesn't suck to see that. It just kind of sucks to not see Dead Monster with an org and signed to someone and officially with a team. It feels like the dude has deserved this for so long, and I'm hoping that this roster can really be a place for him to find some success. Can they, make a top 8 with this roster? It's going to probably be pretty difficult. I think that's probably what they should be shooting for at, the highest level. But I want to see them at least make some regionals. I really could see the Stormtroopers lineup making a couple of different regionals, finding some sort of organization support, and giving Dead Monster another platform to stand on because he deserves it. I really do have to reiterate how much I think Dead Monster has just sort of had the short straw on a couple of different of events in different teams here. So I'm hoping he gets the long one for this one and he's able to sort of solidify himself as a talent here because he deserves it.
Yeah, fully agree.
Makes
a lot of sense. Yeah. It's also nice seeing Stormtroopers back. I also thought they were quite a fun team. It launched apparently, Jack, my favorite player, or one of my favorite players. The fact that, you've had so much success from that roster. Dead Monster, I fully agree. He's always been there. He's always been dedicated. He's one of Jack's, as far as I can tell, most respected players that he plays with. He is one of his, until Jory is, his twos partner. Like, he has got so much talent. And if Dead Monster can find a team that he fits on really well with, then he's going to find his place in history.
Absolutely. I feel as well that Tho and Ocelot are still quite young, so there's still a lot of room to grow for them as well. So I think that team could do some damage. I don't see them winning a regional. I don't see them making top 6. But I do see them making, 1 or 2 of the regionals.
But then you don't need to. That's the thing. Like, you don't need to have even like a top 8 finish as a measure of success. You're coming up in one of the strongest regions, the strongest region in the world. And if people are seeing, like, okay, we didn't make top 8, like, oh, should we look at a change? No, shut up. Don't look at a change, you idiot. Like, just stick with it for a bloody bit and figure it out. Like, you're smart. You're good. Just trust your brain.
I appreciate we're all on the same page here. Everybody else is just kind of like, yeah, Rostermania, woo, this is fun to watch. Meanwhile, the guys who, analyze this for a living are all like, please stop. Just stop with the switches, stop moving around. Just keep it consistent. We know it's not fun, but it's going to be better in the long run. So I got to hope we see some stability here at this point. Because, again, Rostermania is fun to watch up until we get to the actual event and you go, what on earth is happening on the pitch?
Well, I think there's loads more we could talk about in Rostermania. One last thing, though, of course, and this is a rumor. Hasn't been fully confirmed yet, but Team Liquid are going to completely miss out on Winter Split so that they can get in a Tau and Oski in spring, which I think is a very, very bold move, giving up any chance of making Worlds. But my word, that team is going to be dangerous.
Wait. Do you think they have a chance of making Worlds now? Listen.
If they stuck with their old team, they forfeited any chance of making Worlds. So,
I mean,
brilliant. I love this idea. I love it. Like having Liquid literally embody everything we've been talking about and taking on 3 young players to develop them and have them be the Team Liquid for future. It's actual perfection. Liquid have look, they've got enough money to take this risk. If this doesn't work, fair play. They've paid X amount of money now to show that it doesn't work. That's okay. You've still got that learning process, and you've potentially started off a big chain reaction of amazing players coming through Europe. I mean, like, Bass, we were just both so happy, I think, to hear that Liquid were going this direction, because having young players fostered, as much as we said, it is the best thing that an org can do. And Liquid didn't have a chance of making Worlds anyway, so, like, what's the risk?
I mean, not only that, but I'm glad to see a brand like Liquid doing this. It's showing that there are teams who are willing to put that type of dedication to Rocket League, because not everybody has the capabilities to kind of just dump a roster and be able to hold on to young talent. A good example of that is KCP has officially dropped Raleigh because of the fact that they wanted to probably keep him as a talent and have him work on his skills until eventually he gets to the age in which he can compete. But that's not always viable for every team. It's a lot of money put into that, and it's a lot of dedication, not only from the team, but from the player as well. I think one of the reasons that people are that they are no longer working with Raleigh is because he's been kind of inactive lately. He hasn't been putting in as many hours. He hasn't been on Twitter. He hasn't really had the same sort of activity. So it's hard to keep a kid that is, you know, young and still going through the world, developing, trying to figure out if they even want to play Rocket League professionally, and keeping them on a track to possibly play professionally. So getting these players on Liquid, I think, is the most brilliant move they can. They're representing a really good part of the Rocket League community, showing that there is up and coming talent, and they're showing to other organizations, hey, it's not going to be about these short-term games. It's about making sure that in the long run you have a competitively viable team, and that's what they're setting up for, because I think we can all agree at this point, Liquid season is chalked. They did not have the greatest start. I think there's like a 1% chance they make it. They have to, like, quite literally, I think, win like 2 or 3 regionals if they want to make Worlds at this point, and they're not gonna. Let's just be honest. They're not gonna.
I mean, to me, it shows the difference in mentality between Liquid, who have now gone to the new player route. You know, start from scratch. We'll go again, whatever. And Guild, who they have gone through the idea of having, you know, 2 brilliant players. Nolly and Devo have been historically very good. Maybe peaked. We don't know how they're going to go. Maybe that peak was just their first one. Whatever. But having a completely fresh roster is brilliant. Guild holding on to 2/3 of theirs, I hope that's not just for the points, because 70 points you can piss away in the wind. They don't matter. That does not matter that you have those 70 points. If you're going to split this roster up, just do it. Don't get precious.
With the new points as well. There's 50 extra points at the top. How on earth are you going to hold on to 70? That doesn't do anything.
Yeah. Exactly, like that's the one thing. Each split it increases. But talking about Atau and Oski, I think brings us in perfectly to our next segment, which is about the bubble scene in general. And we've been talking about it a bit throughout, and I see how happy Baz is about this, because me and him are huge casters. Well, not huge casters. I'm not gonna say huge casters, but we're big into our bubble scene, both here and in NA. And it is one thing that I want to see more of. And of course, big shout out to the Bubble Scout as well, who will be coming on the podcast later on, who's been doing absolutely great work on Twitter. So at the Bubble Scout on Twitter, to follow him there, see all the new roster changes and stuff. But the bubble scene is so important to foster these new players. And what exactly about it? How can we improve the bubble scene, do you think?
Okay. Listen, do you want like 8? How long do I have? 12 hours? Can I just keep going? I could rant about this literally all day.
I know very little about the bubble scene. I will fully admit. I'm mainly looking, you know, you're 16 like above. I'm in like both regions. So whatever you think you can teach me about the bubble scene, I would love to. I'm just going to sit back and drink some coffee. Let's do it.
All right, we're going to do some stretches real quick. Let's get into this one. All right.
Messinoris time.
Messinoris time. No, actually though, bubble scene is it's kind of where I came up. That's kind of the reason why I'm so passionate about it, is because I stand by this statement, and I'm going to continue to state this until I'm out of esports. If you want an esport to be competitively viable, the bubble scene underneath it needs to be just as viable in order for the entire scene to thrive. Because we're talking about this, when those veterans eventually leave the game, as much as everybody wants these guys to play video games the rest of their life, eventually veterans are going to move on to either commentary, to coaching, to another esport, to something. They eventually move on. When that happens, there needs to be a bubble scene that is viable enough to take its place. And I think Rocket League right now is kind of struggling with that. I think the big reason why I see EU as such a more competitively viable bubble scene is because there's a lot more support when it comes to leagues right now. And I know players aren't necessarily always the biggest fan of leagues, because it can interfere with some of their other schedules, having preset dates, having events that they have to fully book themselves out for. But It's how you develop yourself as a player. It's how you get used to a team mentality. It's how you get used to playing with other players that you might not necessarily always fit with, but you can learn off of them and learn how to adapt. And right now, as it stands, I think the bubble scene needs a little bit of a boost here. I think that EU's got some decent events, but you look at North America and there's like, I think maybe one big league going on. Occasionally, there's like a $10,000 event, but I think as it stands right now, EU is in a much healthier place. They're willing to take the risk. They're willing to look at people from the bubble scene. Obviously, Liquid's a really good example of that. Another one being Seiko from last year, the risk that Endpoint was willing to take there. And then in North America, I still can't get over it. How Zenil, Blaze, and Poyo do not have teams right now, or at least not like organizations backing them. It boggles my mind because young talent's going to be here as long as you want. Veterans are eventually going to run out, but there's always new guys that are willing to take the risk, and I think organizations need to look at that a lot more.
Yeah, like we cast Neil for game time. You know, we saw him grow. We saw him join 3 different teams and look amazing in each team every time. Complement that team absolutely perfectly. Yeah. I believe it was something like that anyway. And yeah, Poyo as well. We were talking about him earlier on. He is far too good to not have a team right now. I don't know how he hasn't got a team. And Blaze as well, who seems to be, you know, right now still with Gentleman, obviously, but you know, how exactly is that going to work? Is he going to be able to find an org? Of course, obviously they had an org, and then obviously things went wrong, and you know we don't know exactly what happened behind the scenes. But you know it is awkward. It is a weird place to be. This bubble scene is really, really important, and I feel like NA have ignored it a little bit because we saw during the off season here, you know, between fall and winter, we saw obviously the Monaco Cup. We saw a few other events as well in EU for EU teams. NA didn't really have that much going on, and I feel that can be kind of a bit of a downside. Obviously, Game Time are great. Game Time are one of the ones I will always shout out because they are fantastic at fostering that bubble scene. But of course, they're focused right now on ALGS, so it's kind of hard for them to focus on Rocket League as well, which is kind of tough. But you know, Stumpy, hearing all about all these players, what do you think they have to do to really break through?
I think I don't know how much it is on the younger players for them to break through. I think it's on the veteran players to let them in because they've got much more of a voice. If you're saying to, for example, Metsonorus and Relating Wave, you know, they ended up picking up Seiko. If they were thinking, okay, we're going to pick up these veteran players, it's on Seiko, obviously, to make himself known by going through the 6-man's grind, by playing 2s as often as he can to bump into these players in ranked and show that he can destroy them as much as he can, and just being able to show off what he can do. But then ultimately, it's on Relating Wave and it's on Metsonorus or whoever you would put in that position to go with that and take it and say, you know what, yeah, we do trust that. We do trust that can happen. I mean, I'm close with the Endpoint guys, and I was speaking to Eclipse when he was sort of saying about these players, and he said to me, like, when it was all announced with Seiko, I was like, but who is Seiko? Like, I don't know much about him. Why did you pick him up? And he had so many answers for me, and I was convinced they believed in him from day one. You just need to have the veteran players believe that younger players are going to be able to do it. And I think that in North America, you don't have that belief just yet. If players tell you they do, fair enough. I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I think as a general consensus, the veteran players, they want to play with people who they know can compete at that top level. Maybe they've got lower peaks, but when you see a player pop off, like Seiko, or even coming into this, Vatira has suddenly come out in the last 2 months or so. He's just looking incredible. And in that in the Young Kids show match that Johnny Boy hosted on his Twitch channel, being able to see these players play against each other and everyone being like, oh my god, Vatira is really good. Aqua is really good. Wow, look at Daniel. He's not the best player in that lobby, even though he looked incredible. It's on the older players to look at those streams and say, I want them. I want to pick up Vatira. I want to pick up Daniel, Aqua, Sega, whoever it ends up being.
Can I just say ditto? Like, it just literally everything that has been said
yes,
at this point
can.
is Stumpy. Yeah. You're hitting the nail on the head at this point, is that I think these young players want this shot, they're just not getting it. And it's also really confusing considering that the last time someone did this in North America, it works beyond compare. Drees is killing it right now. I don't understand why the results are speaking for themselves and everyone's putting on earmuffs and just kind of like ignoring it. Like, I don't
remember
really
Justin?
get this.
Remember where Justin came from? The rival series? Like, and he got picked up by NRG, and they were like, oh, okay, you know, they're going to be fine, they're going to do well. And now they've been the best team in North America for literally years. Like, yeah, hopefully this is a blip. North America will forget about this, and then the bubble scene is going to be reinvigorated, and winter becomes an amazing fostered creche of young players.
All I'm going to say is that there is movement right now. I'm not going to speak about it, but there are things that are being developed behind the scenes that people are trying to get the bubble scene in North America a little bit more revitalized. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. It's sounding like there's some good stuff going on, but we're going to have to find out. You know, it's all about time at this point.
Well, Stumpy mentioned what we're going to talk about next there, so a nice little segue in. And that is, of course, the Winter Split, which starts, of course, professional right there, Stumpy. The professional in you coming straight out. The Winter Split is coming up very, very quickly. Of course, the first regional qualifiers start on Friday. So, tomorrow. So not that far away. Of course, we'll be in the future. So you'll see this a week later. We're in the past. Everyone else is in the future right now. So we're talking to people in the future. We're incredible.
Wrong way. He's in the past. I thought I could trust my. No, ignore me. Ignore me.
But yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. What are we expecting from the regions, of course? Because as we know, it is a new format. All three splits have a different format. So this one is a group stage with the top team going straight to the upper bracket in a double elimination bracket, and then the teams in second and third going to the lower bracket, and then of course fourth place getting eliminated instantly. So it becomes a lot more precarious than the Swiss stage, perhaps, because one or two bad performances could put you in that bottom spot, or even put you in third place, and maybe you're expecting a first.
It's much less forgiving than Swiss. Swiss is the most forgiving format. It's also the most competitively viable format, as far as I'm concerned. It's my favorite tournament format, which is not a great party topic. But having these groups be teams of 4 as well is going to work much better than anybody who might have seen previous LAN events. So we had groups of 3. They didn't work out as well. 3 is not a great number for a group. Having 4 means that you can have a bigger round robin. You can actually get some proper representative results. I think I like it a lot. I like that the first position goes through into the upper bracket as well. I think that's nice and fun. It's a good idea.
Automatic top
bring
6.
Them up there. Yeah, It's awesome. I think that's so nice to see. I think it is going to... We're going to obviously see a group of death that then everyone's like, oh yeah, we're going to see, this team 100% go through. And there's obviously then going to be an upset in whatever group of death it ends up being, because that always happens whenever anybody identifies the group of death. I think ultimately at the end of this, we see EU on top again, because we're literally the better region. GG, just call it now. Let's go to spring. Why not?
Calling it way, way early here. Despite all the roster changes in North America at the very top, everybody trying to make themselves as competitively viable as possible. EU still on top. Hey, listen, man, you're not going to get an argument from me, because neither EU or NA are on top. OC on top till the day I die. Yes, OCE all the way. No, actually, though, I'm excited about this format, especially the fact that the top teams are basically going to immediately find themselves in positions where they could already make the LAN without even doing well in playoffs. It's kind of crazy to think about how important these group stages are. And Morky, I hate to break your heart, my friend, but I don't think that really is going to be all that advantageous to your team. Again, Endpoint's biggest struggles have really been in those earlier stages. So the fact that now there's actually going to be repercussions to them not doing well in those early stages, it's going to be kind of difficult. I can't necessarily say too much, because I know Williams Resolve has had some difficulty making it into that top 8 as well, so I'm going to keep my fingers crossed we can end up making some decent playoff runs. But I think this is really going to be a tester for a lot of big teams. I think one of the teams in particular that this is going to be a make or break split for them. If Karmine Corp does not perform, I have got a lot of questions for that team, because this is a format where theoretically they should be making playoffs every time.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we saw Karmine Corp just not do nearly as well as we thought they were going to through fall as well, and I don't want to say disappointing, because ultimately their biggest tournament result ended up being right before fall ended up kicking off. They did very well in WePlay. That was a big result at the time. But then just missing out on LAN. I have to stress it was just missing out. Literally came down to the last event, and even then it was like the top 8 of that event. It had to go like a certain way for them to make it through. They were skin of their teeth not making it. I think K-Corp should do very well here. They should be seeing themselves, go through the groups, get into that top 6, pretty much. You'd hope every single time, depending on who else is in their group. I think that they have got, this should benefit them. But Mork, mate, you're going to be seeing Endpoint start to have a bit of a struggle. You've had good Endpoint so far. Come to the dark side and have your heart broken week in, week out.
I I honestly, so what I'm seeing EU is I'm still seeing BDS and Dignitas make it because they're so consistent. I still see them making major, and then I see like 8 teams that could possibly make major for the other 3 spots. That's how crazy it is. And Endpoint is one of those teams, but Endpoint have to do well in the group stage. They cannot afford to be, finishing second or third every single time. They have to finish at least first in one of them. And that's going to be difficult because they're notoriously slow starters. Almost in every series, they can see the first goal. They usually have a 50-50 chance of losing the first game. It becomes more difficult when that happens. And you have to do really well in these kind of groups. You have to do very, very strongly in order to get through. And of course, as well, there's potential for tiebreakers, which makes it even more exciting and even more difficult for Endpoint, I think, because those tiebreakers don't favor Endpoint because they're clearly best 7 merchants, but they're not best of 5 merchants.
I mean, I've casted them in literally a single tiebreaker when it came down to them or Barca being eliminated from the RLCS X grid format, and they lost it. And we were like, okay, obviously that was going to happen. Obviously we're going to come in and they're just going to lose. Great. Cheers, guys. That was a good season. I'm excited to see how they do. I think in North America, ultimately, we're going to be seeing NRG always top their group. We're going to see FaZe always top their group. This is all also presuming they're not in the same group. G2 always top their group. Envy? Question mark. I don't know. I've never had the biggest amount of faith in Envy personally. But yeah, we're going to be seeing a bit more of those top teams in North America. But I do see this to be a good chance for the other teams that are lower down, the more bubbly RLCS teams, sort of the lower end of that, around the 10th spot. If they can make it in and get a couple of wins in the group stages, I think that's a really good place to be in. Because in Swiss, you're playing theoretically teams that the quality gets worse as you go through. If you lose twice in a row, you're playing the other worst team in that competition. If you lose 2 in a row in the groups, you then still might need to play NRG. Like you still might need to have that big performance. I think this is a very, very good training ground for those high pressure situations.
Absolutely. Well, sorry, Bass. What are you going to say?
All I was going to say here is just sort of again confirm what Stumpy is saying here. This is where I see teams like we were talking about before, Dead Monsters team, another good team to sort of talk about when it comes to the bubble scene. Vibrance in North America, teams like that have kind of had some difficulty with consistency because Swiss stages are so incredibly volatile. I think that this is going to be their time to shine because you don't actually need to make a top 8 anymore. Making playoffs at this point is just making top 12. You just need to not be the bottom of your group. So I think this is going to be really good for a lot of teams like that. Yes, they may go out early in playoffs, but making it to playoffs at this point is huge. Not only for the fact that it lets you get into another day of RLCS, but it lets the mainstream talent cast you. And that's huge for a lot of these teams who are trying to get themselves to organizations. Putting more eyes on them is big. So for teams like Vibrance, for teams like Stormtroopers, I'm trying to think of a couple other ones that are probably going to be on that cusp. Even guys in that have kind of made regionals before, but haven't had good success. NXT, the Devious and Integrity combination now. Teams like that I think are going to do really well here. So I'm interested. I think this is going to be a very, very interesting split with a lot of upsets that just no one's going to really expect.
All right, big question. Number 1 seed in each region. Go.
BDS, EU, NRG, NA. I'm locking them in, surely. Bass, don't you bloody dare try and disagree with that.
I can't. That's the issue. It's like,
Good.
All right, you know what? I will only one I will disagree at this point. I'll say BDS, obviously top of EU. I'd like to see Dignitas try and put in a little bit of a run for their money there, just because of the fact that I actually was a scrub kill Adauda coming into this season, so I'm happy to actually have been proven wrong and see that he's surviving and thriving at this point. But yeah, in NA, I'm actually going to pick G2, not because I don't think NRG are going to take it, but because I want to see what G2 does. I'm a G2 fanboy at heart. I really always have been. The first LAN I ever went to, I bought G2 merch. I've still got it somewhere in my room at this point, and so I want to see them do well with this roster. I also kind of want to see them fail because how dare you guys get rid of Drees? Conflicting opinions at this point.
I suppose as well for you, Bass, OC and APAC, who do you see coming out from there to the major?
OC, I gotta stay with Renegades. Listen, I know everybody's really hot on the fact that Ground Zero beat them at LAN. I'm taking that result with a grain of salt. It's in group stages, it's in a best of 5, and it was after Ground Zero were hot as heck. They took a really good win off of Tokyo, and then took that momentum into their second series. So when it comes to a best of 7 where both teams have been competing on the day and had some time to warm up and get into their stuff, I still don't see Ground Zero taking it. So Renegades go for me at OC for OCE. APAC, you got to stay with Tokyo Verde. I'd love to see Pulse Clan give them a good run for their money and somehow upset them and take the next major or make a spot at the next major. But you got to stick with Tokyo Verde. Realize is Realize for a reason.
Something that I really like about this format as well is that for the emerging regions, for your APACs, you know, everything like that, there are so many teams that are competing in these groups that will get so much experience. If you play Tokyo Verde in groups, that is amazing. You don't need to go through in the Swiss and get good results then to play them. You can get them in your first round. It's brilliant. I think that's so good. So I think this format is just very good for emerging talent.
All right, well, we're running out of time, so we'll quickly go on to some questions and answers. I asked for some questions from my audience, from all of our audiences together, mine, yours, and Bass's, Stumpy, of course. But first question is for Stumpy. Do I ingest plant or flower fertilizer to become 12 feet tall? From Andrew Scott.
Well, I would say plant fertilizer, #plant power. There you go. But don't eat fertilizer, for the love of Christ. Don't go out there and eat fertilizer. I just realized what I said. No, actually, neither. Maybe just have a good diet and drink water.
Stumpy did a whole turnaround there. Man was like, yeah,
the
I don't
cogs
want
in
to
my
have
head,
any of this.
the
It's not
lawsuits
necessary.
were flying around.
A good question here for Bass is, because of course I'm a big fan of the EU scene as well. From Finchy, thoughts on the EU uni scene as compared to college carball?
Okay, I remember seeing this question and I was very interested to talk about this a little bit. I think that university play and sort of the collegiate scene that we're starting to see develop in EU right now, it's very similar tracks to what we had seen CCA do in North America here. CCA, again, you guys gotta remember, as much as it is a huge thing right now, when CCA first came out, it also had a little bit of difficulty getting some traction. So that's kind of how it goes, is that I think there's a lot of really good backing to a lot of the guys doing stuff in EU right now. You're looking at Uni Rocketeers, you're looking at Newell, you're looking at a lot of guys, NSE, who are doing really, really good stuff here. It's going to take them a little bit of time to find the same sort of, I'd say, popularity as North America has with CCA here, but that's fine. Nothing is ever made overnight. Overnight success doesn't stick around. That's the biggest thing I think I always try to teach people, is that, hey, success is great, but it's better when you earn it, because when it happens overnight, it's just a flash in the pan. You get 15 minutes of fame and then people forget about you. So I'm glad to see that the Uni Rocketeers guys and the rest of the guys in collegiate in EU right now are making a good foundation, because I think it's going to help them in a year from now when they really do have as large of an audience as CCA and some of the other collegiate guys in the scene.
Just to tack onto that real quick, I hope that we also see Psionics get involved over here in Europe. It would be amazing to see them being brought up to then be alongside the CCA, get alongside the CRL level of, you know, production ultimately.
Question here from Dennis RL. Are there any notes you make pre-cast or during the cast that help you casting? So just some general talks about the kind of notes we make. Because of course we're always taking notes. We're always, yeah, exactly. I've got my notebook here beside me as well. My new one for RLCS, for the Winter Split. It's going to be full. So, Stumpy, what about you? What kind of notes do you make?
So when I was so I'll just talk about the major. When I was at the major, I made basically a one-pager for every series that I did. In the morning, I'd then just sit down in the talent lounge, write up a one-pager, stats that I thought were interesting, cool storylines. All of us worked on a storyline document at the major, and we were telling each other, something that I adored, we were telling each other, hey, right, this happened, so make sure you mention that. That's a really cool thing. And like, I would have been told things by any other caster, and then it makes me sound cleverer and it makes the show better, right? Because now people are seeing that as, oh, this person, therefore the whole production, they know what they're talking about. So big group effort, everyone gets involved. And then when I'm there, I'm then scribbling down on my bit of paper, scores, anything that I think is interesting. I also write in like intros and throws for everything when I'm on a little bit of paper, just so I know roughly what I'm saying.
For me, I take kind of a combination of different notes here. So I will say to anybody who's kind of on the fence about note taking, the reason I started taking notes, because I didn't actually take notes for, I want to say, about a year into my career. It took me a pretty long time before I started taking notes. Corelli did an interview that kind of opened my eyes about this, and I think what Stumpy's talking about here is another reason that this should kind of be reason for a caster to take notes, or for anybody that's in the scene to take notes. Once you get to a LAN or an in-person event, you don't have 3 monitors to look at. You can't bring up Wikipedia,
exactly.
you can't bring up a bunch of stuff on the side, and Corelli pointed this out during an interview and was like, hey, this called a desk for a reason. People have notepads and stuff all over the desk that you can't see, but that's what they're doing there, is that they have a bunch of things to feed them info. So what I've started doing is just taking down basic stuff. Series score. Literally just going through and writing down what goals are being scored in which game, so you can see a score line of what's happening throughout the game, seeing trends behind that. If you can, what I've started doing is also taking notes of who scores the goal and who's getting the assist. At least doing that. Saves are a bit harder because they constantly happen and there's never really a way to write that down. But doing that, just having a series score, something like that, so that you can have history to recall upon when you're on that. And then the other thing that I have to, again, shout out Corelli for, because someone asked about this, vocab. Just have something that has a bunch of just random different words for you. If you've got phrases that you get stuck up on, just write them down and have them around. The big ones for me that I've had are like, I've got an entire page for cherry on top, stuff where like teams are adding on, having different phrases for that. I have different phrases for momentum because I use that word more than anything else on this planet. But yeah, having a vocab book just of your own phrases written down, really, really helpful.
I actually made something similar to that, and I called it Synonym List for Dummies because I realized that I was saying the same words every single time, and it's a color-coded Google sheet where I've then put in words that like at the top, so I've got like great, fast, defending, demo, win, accurate, stuff like that. And then say any synonyms that I think are good. Then any that I want to say, I'll then put in bold. I didn't have that during the major, but because I had it in my head of like, I could visualize the sheet, it then helped me in person. So yeah, something like that. Synonyms are just a brilliant, brilliant idea to go for.
Well, we had loads more questions, but unfortunately we have run out of time. So I suppose before we go, would you guys be interested in coming back on again after this major just to talk about, you know, what the results and stuff?
Oh, big time, mate. I want to see if we're right, Bass. We need to be. Surely.
And then and any socials, Twitch shows. I know Stumpy's got a new show coming out. I just want to plug. We'll start with you, Stumpy, and you want to plug before we leave.
My TV show that I've got with Cole has been renewed for a second season, which is awesome. It's called That Gaming Show. It's on Jinx TV. We're start recording later this month. It's going to be out soon, so make sure that you follow at Jinx TV, and you can see when that comes out. It's cool. It's in studio in London, and it's maybe there's going to be something interesting happening with it. A brand new format. Keep an eye out on their Twitch as well. Otherwise, watch the RLCS. Lol. I talk on that.
You know that thing, RLCS.
It's just that small thing, yeah, just a small you, Bass, and any socials that you want to plug before we head off here?
I'm not as cool as Stumpy. I don't have my own TV show. Maybe in the
so
future, someday,
it'd
be dope. But yeah, for right now, let's give all the praise to Stumpy. Yeah, I'm doing basic stuff. You can see me at BassFromThePast. There may be some cool stuff that happened on my Twitter in the future. But you know, hey, listen, keep your eyes peeled. I think the reality is that all 3 of us are going to be on RLCS broadcast, and if you guys want to see that, make sure to just keep tuning in as much as you can, because I think I stand by saying this. I've said this the entire season. This is my favorite season of RLCS so far. I don't know what it is, but the formats combined with how competitively viable almost every team entering is at this point, it's made for an incredibly entertaining season, and I can't wait to see how it concludes and really just kind of continues to progress from here.
Yes, indeed. Well, I believe next Sunday you're on the qualifier stream, correct, Bass?
Yes, next Sunday. Okay, I was gonna say not this Sunday. I'm out of town.
The next Sunday, next Sunday.
Yeah, next Sunday I will most likely be on the Williams Resolve qualifying broadcast. No confirmation on that, but I know I'm working with Williams Resolve, so I think we're gonna figure that out, and I cannot wait to do that. It's gonna be so much fun.
And then of course we'll see Stumpy as well at the regional event on the mainstream. So we'll
yes, on North America, and also on the day 1 stream for Europe, where we're going to be looking at everyone. I'm so excited to see your face, Bass. It's going to be great. Going to be able to talk all about you. It's going to be brilliant. I'm going to reference this conversation probably. It'll get weird. Watch the VOD.
Wow, I'm just being ignored here. I'm just being ignored. I cast for Endpoint and I was just being ignored.
Well, yeah, but Endpoint won't bloody make it. It's fine. They're gonna fail. They always do.
Pete, do you hear this, Pete?
No, don't bring Pete into this. I love Pete.
Okay, well,
Oh my
thank you,
God.
Stumpy. Thank you, BassFromThePast, for joining me. Absolute honor to have you guys on. We'll see you next week for a very special episode where we talk about the mental side of Rocket League. We have Callum Abbott on, who's the endpoint psychologist, and we also have Skizzen, who is a Rocket League coach for Aaron Roar, who also loves the psychology. So tune in for that. We'll see you all again next week. Goodbye.